Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Dr. Susan. I'm Dr. Susan, and we are here to enjoy another series of Play and Learn. And today we're going to look at a story about a little girl and how she discovers things within herself that she doesn't really recognize that she's doing to herself. So we're going to take a look at what that is and see if you can find anything like that and how you may treat yourself. You know, we treat ourselves different ways. I know everybody talks about how you should treat your friends and how you should treat your family and how you should treat your pets and how you should behave and do all that things with other people. But have you ever thought about how you treat yourself? And the way in which we treat ourselves is really a picture of how we treat other people. So we're going to take a look at that and then have a fun little project for us to do to kind of remind us about that. And so we'll have some fun with that as soon as we hear the story. So we're going to hear the story and see what that's all about. There we go. All right. So let's take a look at the story. We are made of stories. Did you know that? We are made of stories. And this one is about listening with my heart. It's a story of kindness and self-compassion. It's by Gabby Garcia, and it's illustrated by Ying Hu Tan. I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, but let's take a look and find out about the story. Esperanza's tummy fluttered as she practiced her lines on the porch. Today was the class play. Waiting for her mama to walk her to school, she paced back and forth when she spotted a heart-shaped rock. See it down there on the bottom of the page. At that moment, they heard scratching and a soft cry. Esperanza peeked under the stairs and spotted a kitty shaking and shivering. No mama in sight. She scooped the kitty into her lap and cuddled her. She's all alone. I think she's hungry. Esperanza reached for her lunch bag and picked off a piece of chicken and offered it to the kitty, who gobbled it up. Mama, I think this rock is a reminder to spread kindness and love. That's what we do when we listen with our hearts. I think you're onto something, said Mama. Can we keep Cleopatra, please? Asked Esperanza, who'd already named the kitty. Queens are always welcome at our house, said Mama. If she's still here after school, we'll take her in. At school, Esperanza was more focused on the play than on math and reading. Clutching her script during recess, she noticed Bayo sitting alone on a bench. He was new to school this week and didn't speak much English. She wondered if he felt lonely or scared. Esperanza found a soccer ball and kicked it over to him. A smile spread across Babo's face. He stood, popped the ball in the air, and then bounced it between his knees and head a few times. Dude, good got moves, thought Esperanza. They spent recess giggling and making up hand signals. Afterwards, Esperanza borrowed Ms. Owen's English-Vietnamese dictionary. She wrote friend in Vietnamese, drew a picture of Bayo and her, then put it on his desk. Esperanza rubbed the rock in her pocket. Listening with her heart made her feel peaceful inside. Finally, it was time for the performance. It was too late for Bayo to be in the play, but he stood at Miss Owen's side as a stagehand. Excitement bubbled as Esperanza awaited her cue. Esperanza walked on stage, tripped as she was about to say her first line, and splattered across the stage. When she got up, she forgot her line, so Miss Owens whispered it to her from backstage. Heat rushed through Esperanza's body, and her eyes were glued to her. She wished she would just disappear. That could be embarrassing. I ruined the play, thought Esperanza, rushing off stage as soon as she finished her part. I messed up in front of everyone. She tucked herself behind some props so no one could see her. Esperanza noticed her body was shaking and her face still burning. She took a deep breath and dug the rock out of her pocket. It was cracked and lopsided, just how she felt. Esperanza touched her hand to her heart and felt the disappointment. Bayo found Esperanza a few minutes later and handed her a drawing with the word friend written above it. Esperanza nodded. She hadn't been treating herself like a friend. What a nice reminder. Esperanza realized this wasn't the first time she'd been unkind to herself. At the soccer game last week, she missed the ball that swished by her head, and they lost the game. Nice work, a player from the other team yelled as all the others laughed. Esperanza thought she had let her team down and was the worst soccer player in the world, thinking those thoughts made her feel worse. Have you ever done that to yourself? When you haven't done something right? At the curtain call, Esperanza reminded herself she hadn't ruined the play. She had had an accident, and accidents happen to everyone. This is her thinking back about the play. Listening with her heart wasn't just about giving kindness and love to others. It was about giving it to herself, too. I can be a friend to myself, thought Esperanza. When Esperanza got home, she focused on her favorite things. She zipped down the hill on her bicycle and then spent the afternoon painting at the kitchen table. She also got a big hug she needed from Mama and some cuddles from Cleopatra. The end. All right. That was a very nice name for a kitty, Cleopatra, instead of Cleopatra. Anyway, so that's the story, three events actually in Esperanza's experience. And she knew that when she found the rock that was shaped like a heart, she absolutely knew this was telling her something. Sometimes we find things that remind us about something we should have done or something that we did really well, that we're really happy about, and it made those feelings come back up again. And that reminded her of that. And then all of a sudden she sees this kitty, and she steps in and takes care of the kitty, and recognizing that the kitty didn't have his mama, she didn't see it, so she, of course, being kind and compassionate and loving, she decided she would help take care of the kitty. And her mama felt the same way. And then the play. So you saw how that happened. That wasn't a positive experience for her. And yet she had a positive experience with her new friend and how that happened in the story. So the purpose of the story and the ideas that the story gave us was the fact that if we skip taking care of ourselves and feel compassion for ourselves when something doesn't go right, instead of getting mad at ourselves or tell us we aren't worth it and we didn't do a good job and all this other stuff that happens to us when something doesn't go right. We're telling ourselves, because we're listening on the inside, believe it or not, but we're listening to ourselves, and then when something else has bad again, you just go, see, there it goes again. It happened again, it happened again. And that continues happening until you think about changing that thought. As she said, when she thought back about it, she said, when she tripped in the play, that was just an accident. That happens to everybody. Everybody has those kinds of experiences. And so to be hard on herself that she ruined the whole play was a bit much. And then so she wasn't being nice to herself, and she was picking on herself. So she wasn't being a good friend. She was a friend to Bayo. He was great. And she was a friend to the kitty. That was great too. But did she remember herself? And that's the important part. We have to remember that it has to start with us. We know that. That it has, whatever the love is, the kindness is, whatever's inside of us has to come out and be expressed. And when we express those things in a loving, positive way, guess what comes back to you? Only that. Negative stuff can't come back to you because you didn't put it out. But when you beat yourself up or tell yourself you're not doing something right or whatever the scenario is that you're working with, when that happens, then those are the things you're sending out, and you get more of it. And who wants more of that? So recognizing that we have the chance, the opportunity to change how we're thinking about ourselves. And when we do that, miraculous things happen. So what I wanted to do was to kind of create something for us that would remind us about it. I've got the supplies and I'm going to make it now, and if you have Play-Doh or magic or Model Magic at home and you can go grab it, you can make it with me right now. Or maybe you want to make this for yourself later. Or maybe you see a friend that's having a really hard time they're beating themselves up for something that happened. Remind them that they're loved and they need to love themselves too, because that's what makes us different, and it makes ourselves different, it makes the family different, it makes our community different. When I say community, our family and our friends. And it makes the world different. The world's different by one thought at a time. That's the only way it can be different. So what we're going to do is, last night I had not Model Magic, the clay that hardens. So last night I made the project that I wanted to show you today, and my project didn't dry. So I brought it anyway so you could see it, and then but I'm going to make the same thing out of Model Magic that we don't have to worry about it drying. It can dry really hard the next day, but it takes a long time for this other stuff to dry. So what I ended up making, I made a heart, just like in the story. So you can see it right there. I made it, and it's out of the modeling clay. That's what I made it out of. Because I thought, oh, well, she found that. And that's what was reminding her to be loving and kind and compassionate. So there was that. So that's the first thing that we're going to make, and we're going to make that out of blue clay. But I have a trick I want to tell you about that one of the girls in junior church told me a long time ago. If you use Model Magic and you leave it out, or the air gets to it, it gets hard and you can't do anything with it. What she showed me, and I know you can do it with a little oil called linseed oil, or you can do it with water. But this is not super dry, but it's getting there. So I'm just going to take a little bit in the palm of my hand of water, rub it around, and I'm just going to rub it through the clay. And what this does, it moistens the clay and makes it more pliable again. So if you have some of this clay sitting in a Ziploc bag, you know, after you've taken it out of the original bag, then you can use that to soften the clay again. So, and then you just kind of keep stretching it like this, and it just makes it soft, and you lose the dry, crackly parts. So this is just a little tip. So if you have some of that at home, don't throw it away. Try this first. And if this works, then you can then use the clay more. Make more projects or just play with it more. This clay I borrowed from my grandson. He loves Model Magic. So we use that a lot at our house. So anyway, all right. So what we're going to do first is we're going to make the world. And you wonder, why would we make the world? Well, because we live in the world, number one. And number two, our thoughts travel all over the place. They don't just come out of our mouths and go to the ground and get disappeared. They go out there. And then so the thoughts and the feelings and the actions we take that go out there, we want to be sure that it's loving and kind and compassionate as it goes out, because we know that our words and our actions always return to us. So we want to make sure when it returns, it's a good thing, right? So what we're going to do with this, and I have if you don't have a play rolling pin, or your mom won't let you use her rolling pin from her bakery stuff, this is a little piece of PVC pipe that I have, and that's what I use to roll out the clay. And I'm going to move this over here so you can see it better. Sorry, I always forget. So there we go. So we're going to roll it out. I need it to be a certain size because I'm going to cut out a circle. And the circle is going to represent the world. And this is the first step to what we're making as a reminder, to remind us to be kind and loving. And when we have actions and we do actions and activities and things of that we do us from our highest and best self. We're compassionate, we're thoughtful, and the big things, we're very grateful for what we have and what we can give not only to ourselves, but to our families and to our community. I'm going to have to wait and see if I'm making this big enough, so we're spreading it out. It's like baking a pie. Okay, have I done it? Almost. Got to get a little bit bigger on this side, or maybe this side. So we'll flip it over. The other cool thing about Model Magic is it doesn't make a mess. Where this stuff, the other clay does, it leaves kind of a white residue. So then you got to clean that up. So if you have Model Magic, that's the best thing to use, and it's really fun to play with. And I like all of the colors that it has too. Okay, I've done that. All right, so now I'm going to push that down. And if you need assistance from Mom or sort of with a knife, then please do that. And then find a bowl or a plate or one of those things that fits the size world that you want. It doesn't have to be the same size as mine is. It can be whatever you'd like. Just be very careful and cut it on a surface that isn't going to mar the surface of what's underneath it. You can use a table knife too. You don't really need a sharp edge. You just need an edge to get through the clay. So we're going to pull that off. Okay. And there's our circle. I'm going to kind of pat the edges because they're kind of bumpy from the knife. That looks like a pretty good world, doesn't it? Okay. So there's our world. So we're going to leave that. And the other cool thing about Model Magic is that you can write on it with Sharpies. And the Sharpie doesn't come off. So we're going to leave that just like that for the moment. And then we're going to get out our white. And then I'm going to do some more blue in a minute. We're going to get out our white clay. This clay is also the same thing. It needs a little bit of oomph because it's been sitting in the bag for a while. So I'm going to do that same thing. So I'm just going to kind of put the water in the center of my hand. Not a ton of it, just a little bit. And rub it around, and then I'm going to rub it through the clay. And you can stretch it just so you get it, whoops, and it bounces too. That's what Model Magic does. You can make a ball and it'll bounce. That's lots of fun too. And when it hardens, and if you made it into a circle, you have a ball that you can play with. You really do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and roll this around a little bit to make sure I've got it moist enough. Okay, and I'm going to take a little tiny bit more and wet the center of my hand just a little bit. So, but this works good to revitalizing your Model Magic. Okay, I'm going to add it to this, like that. But I really liked the story of Esperanza and the things that she realized about herself. And sometimes it takes an event to remind us about things. Or like I said, if you find something that you had done before and it reminds you of something. And sometimes it can remind us of things that, I don't want to repeat that. That wasn't a fun experience. I don't want to do that again. And that's a reminder too, which is a good thing. Because then you're at choice to remember not to do that, whatever made you unhappy at that point in time. Okay, so now we're going to roll this out again. I want it to be just a little bit thicker than the world. But I have this cookie cutter. It's a big heart. Okay. Now what this heart is going to represent, if you haven't guessed already, this is going to represent about our community. This is the world, and this is going to represent about our community. Okay, so we're going to do this. Flatten it out. And if you have a big rolling pin, it works good too, but always got to ask permission to use that, especially if that's something Mommy uses in her baking. Okay, so there we go. I think that's big enough. Yes, it is. So now we're going to cut out the heart. This is an actual cookie cutter, so the clay might just pull away. Yeah, it does. There we go. There. Okay. So we're going to take that. When I finish with this, I'll show you the other one, and you can see the difference between the two clays. All right? So now I want to take this, and I'm just going to put a little bit of water on this because I want it to stick to this, and that will help it stick just a little bit. So I don't want a lot, I just want a little, just to go around the edge. Then I'm going to put that right in the middle. That's right in the middle of the world. And that's going to be a heart that represents our country, our community, our state, our neighborhood, our friends, and our families too, because sometimes our families are in different parts of the United States, not necessarily, in the same neighborhood we live in. So we have done that. So there's that heart. Now I've got another, which is a smaller one. It's the same size that I did this one. See there? And then we're going to take this one, and we're going to just make an imprint. Just a little bit of an imprint in the big heart, like that. Okay? And then I'm going to use the tip of my knife to press it down. Kind of like make a little well or a little hole, not a hole, indentation. That's the right word. I'm going to make an indentation where this heart is. Can you see that? Just kind of keep pushing it down. Just like that. All right. So there's that. Doesn't matter if it's bumpy. That's okay. Kind of gives it a cool texture. And if you want to, thinking about textures and things like that, because the blue is supposed to represent the world, of course the blue represents the water, you may want to make different designs, or if you know different patterns of the different countries and the different, like Asia and Africa and all those places in the United States and stuff, you can go ahead and draw those on, and you can color those with a marker. So that's up to you, whatever you'd like to do with that. Because you do want to remind yourself that this is part of the world and this is part of where we live. So now we're going to take the rest of our clay. Oh no, I don't want this color, I want blue, sorry. I wasn't thinking. So I'm going to pull out our blue. We'll see how wet or dry this is. So this isn't too bad. You'll know when you pull your clay apart if it cracks and you have all kinds of little cracky lines in it. That's when you need a little bit of moisture to it. Great. So I'm going to take our two pieces and move them over here so I can make room, because I'm going to do a copy or a representation of the stone that Esperanza found. Okay? And this one I want bigger or thicker than this one here. So we're not going to flatten it out that much. Just want it big enough to cut the heart. I think it's plenty. Okay. So now we're going to cut this heart out. Like that. And I believe I'll be able to do the same thing. Yeah, there we go. Now this is the heart that Esperanza found. And the reason I made the indentation right here was so that this heart fits right there. And this one you don't want to squish down because you want to be able to pick it up and hold it. And as I said, because the Model Magic will dry hard, usually by the next day, you can use that as your stone, which is the one I did here. Now this one's getting pretty hard now. This is the one that I did last night. And as you can see, you can compare the two. This one I like much better because it's cleaner and the colors are much brighter. But with this one, it was fun to do it anyway. And once it dries, then I'm going to paint it. You can use any kind of paint. Watercolors doesn't work too good. So if you use like poster paint or some of that kind of paint, or Sharpies, you can even color on it with Sharpies. You can color the earth any color that you want. Then you can do this heart, which represents our community and our country we live in. And then on your heart, and this one sits right in there like that, you can do that heart any color that you want. This one's a lot thicker than that one. If you wanted it to be very thick, you could take and make another heart out of the Model Magic, wet this, and then put this one on top and then compress the edges together. Pinch the edges around the back, around the side, and you can make a thick heart. So the heart, this particular heart is maybe one you could carry around if you have a special event or something that you're going to be doing that you want a reminder, just to remind yourself that all that you are, all the love that you are is inside you, and it comes out at the highest and the best time. And always, always step forward with love. Esperanza did, as she did with taking care of the kitty and her friend, and realizing that there wasn't anything that was wrong with her when she tripped and had an accident falling on the stage. It didn't ruin the play. And when she recognized that when she played soccer and the ball, she missed the ball and somebody else made a goal, that's part of what the game is about. So to beat yourself up because you missed doesn't really work a whole lot. It might remind you to practice more, which you can do, but it doesn't mean that you're not a good person, a loving person, a kind person. It just means that that particular moment in time, man, there was a mistake. And guess what we could do with mistakes? We can change them into something great by working on what it was that taught us and what we learned from that particular thing. So I want to thank you very much for being with me today, and I hope you enjoy making the hearts. But this is just a reminder to look at and know that you're more than just who you are here. You make a big difference out in the outside world, not only with your families, your friends, but the whole world. So think the good thoughts and have a lovely week, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.